All right, Krishna, and welcome to class number 9 of the Nectar of Instruction. We are looking at the remainder of the 4th verse about the 6 loving exchanges enunciated by Srila Rupa Goswami. And it was a wonderful week last week to begin to explore this verse. Excellent sharing and feedback. Some beautiful feedback in the WhatsApp chat. And we'll start with that, and we'll get into reviewing the verse and talking about the rest of the loving exchanges and continue on this theme. And before we do, we'll start with some Krishna Kirtan on Lord Ram's appearance day. Jai.
Could you speak to that for just a moment?
Yeah, the Ramayana is like 200,000 verses, so there's no universe in which I'll even begin to do justice to Lord Ramachandra, but I'll try to say something. So today's class is about the 6 loving exchanges. And as I pointed out, Rupa Goswami really goes out of his way to show how important that is for the Vaishnava's culture. And one of the beautiful aspects of Lord Rama's Leela is the sweet exchanges that he has. The incredible devotion of Sita, right? And Lakshmana, who is always in the mood of a servant to his older brother. And Hanuman, who found the purpose of his life by finding Rama and always remembering Rama. By doing so, he was able to find his own inner strength. So the Ramayana, the pastimes of Lord Rama, they're this beautiful expression of spiritual relationships, which is why it's so appreciated, thousands and thousands of years later, because that's what we want. That's actually what we're made for, the pastimes of Ramachandra's associates, and also those who come in contact with him, like Jatayu and others who meet him, and the way that they relate to him, and the words and the actions, those sentiments, those exchanges that are given and received. That's actually exactly what Rupa Goswami is talking about. It's a picture of the spiritual world. It's a slice of those pure loving exchanges where everything is given freely. That's the function of the spiritual world. So just a tiny bit about how Lord Rama's appearance and his pastimes matters to us in the light of what Rupa Goswami is saying today in the Nectar of Instruction about cultivating these loving exchanges and how important that is for our bhakti.
Jai. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
We're going to chant a little to Ram then, and to Krishna we'll do.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Okay. I didn't. I think I was getting confused. Musician's audio on, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I turn it on or do I turn it off? How many times have I done this? Okay, so come into your comfortable seat. And Shamya, just make sure you're muted. Take a deep breath in, fill up. Open your mouth, exhale, let it go. We start with these opening prayers, this invocation, this honoring of all of our teachers, the acharyas, who have walked this path before us, bestowing the light of knowledge upon us, removing the darkness of ignorance. We honor all spiritual teachers of all spiritual paths, of all spiritual lineages. All are welcome here. Take a deep breath in, fill up.
Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita
Are you frozen, Shamya? Or are you just stunned from the kirtan? Thanks for laughing. Are you back, Shamya? I think he must have lost internet. Well, we could keep. Oh, you're back. Yes,
Okay.
we. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, it was such an ecstatic kirtan that I was.
You were stunned.
I was stunned.
Thought so. All right, well, please lead us to the light.
Hare Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlamp of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Anchakalpatrupyascha kripasantupyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So continuing on the theme of the 6 loving exchanges, we had some beautiful reflections in the chat. A number of you were talking about this point of reflecting on this point of how it can be kind of revolutionary to consider that when we receive, we're giving someone else the gift of letting them give, right? We're completing the circle and allowing it to flow instead of just stopping that energy, and how that can be very healing for us so that we can receive. And it can also be very healing because it creates the opportunity for connection, which is ultimately the whole point. The whole point of this verse is that it's so critical to our culture, because without these things and without this attitude of connection, we don't actually practice bhakti, really, because we're not really personal, because this is a personal path. And the fruit is personal. The pure love of God that we're aspiring for is very personal. Krishna is not giving us a scripted relationship. He's giving us the opportunity for a fully unique relationship with him, who is himself fully unique and manifests unique qualities to attract everybody. So because that's the goal, the process is also highly individual and personal. So when we tap into that and live that in our culture of bhakti by giving and receiving the 6 loving exchanges, then we're really training. Actually, we're really training for spiritual life and for the spiritual world and for existence with Krishna and his eternally pure devotees. And there were a number of other wonderful reflections. Let's pause from having me speak, and I'll receive you, and we'll hear at least one reflection from the verse and or class, to lead us into today, something that stood out or that was interesting, or the kind of thought exercise I had us think about was reflect on how you've received from the devotees in terms of loving exchanges. So anything on that would be great too.
Caitlin has something to share.
Right.
Thank you, Prabhu. One of the many things that I appreciated from last class was Shamya, you talking about Prabhupada's purport and that he doesn't use words whimsically. That's something that really struck me as someone who also tries not to use words whimsically. So in reading through his purport, especially with this verse, knowing the amount of care going into that, really struck me in a way to be able to receive this text in the way it's supposed to be received, or at least the way I'm supposed to receive it right now. So it was really beautiful to be in that space of everything is intentional and it's what I'm supposed to hear when I'm supposed to hear it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah. That's very deep. In fact, I was given a very powerful instruction once when I asked about reading these books, because reading the books is so important. It's such a central part of what we do. And for me, particularly, it's like one of the two main things that I do in my service is read, and I repeat or share or reflect based on the readings. And so that's kind of like my main thing. So I was asking a senior devotee, somebody who's, for 45 or 50 years read Srila Prabhupada's books in a really serious way. And I was asking about how to get deeper and how to really receive. And their instruction was about one thing and one thing only. They said, whenever you read to associate. Don't just read to read. Read to associate. Read to associate with Prabhupada. Read to associate with Krishna. If you're on the Bhagavad Gita, read to associate with Arjuna. If you're in the 7th canto Bhagavatam with Prahlad and Nrsingadev, read to associate with them. It's a message coming to us, from Krishna, from these different personalities, through Prabhupada, through other acharyas, and therefore from them as well, because they're also presenting themselves in that. They're sharing themselves. So read to associate. And what I heard in your reflection is that, yeah, you're trying to imbibe that and appreciating that. Prabhupada, he puts so much care into these purports, and so he's present in them. He's really present in them. And so to the extent that we're open to receiving him, he's ready, willing, and able to show up personally and help us develop a relationship with him and with his assistance with Krishna. And that's a very personal thing. And that's so just reflecting from my own life, that's such a departure from the academic approach to a book, where you may speculate about what the author is thinking about, or you try to figure it out as you're going. It's like, no, there's room for analysis, but it begins with receiving, like just like Arjuna is like, I'm begging you, Krishna, please help me. And then he was all ears. He was just all ears. And so when we have that receiver's mind, beginner's mind, then the personalities that we're hearing from actually show up in our heart. Thank you. Yeah, another reflection on that I had was, I mentioned at some point, I think it was last class, that sometimes you read something that Srila Prabhupada says, or the Shastra says, and you have questions or doubts, and you're like, well, how does this make sense? And I've had this so many times where if I read the next page, Prabhupada actually clarifies it. You look at the next purport, it's like, oh yeah, dumb. Like, he's so many steps ahead of me. Like, just let him speak. You don't have to press pause. Like, sometimes you could just be like, okay, that's interesting. How does that work? And then keep going. And, oh yeah, that's how it works. Prabhupada actually reconciles the apparent differences or contradictions because he's already thinking about that, or because when you're reflecting on Shastra and hearing it in a personal way, then you hear what you need to hear, as you said. It actually like speaks to you personally. Yeah, it's not coincidental. There's no coincidences. It's like exactly what you need. And so that's a kind of a mystical thing. And I've had it happen to me many, many times. And others have also commented on it that I know of. It's like, sometimes you read a section like, I don't even remember this being here. I read this 5 times. I don't even remember this section at all. This is like, it's new. It's like just manifested for me now. That happens. You can feel like that. So yeah, thank you. Any other reflections on the 6 loving exchanges? Okay.
Wait, I do. I
Yeah.
was
Okay.
trying to encourage someone in the room here, but I was appreciating how you spoke to access how we're doing in bhakti. We can I'm not sure if you said which verse it was, but it's from the Srimad Bhagavatam. But we can see if we're elevated or degraded or where we are on that sort of scale by checking in with what is our love like for the Lord? What is our love like for Krishna? Our friendships with devotees, our compassion for the innocent, and giving respect to the inimical from a distance, right? And so
Right.
that's that mid tier, like that's where that's actually attainable for for us here. It's not, just the more elevated state that we're working towards, but we can see like, okay, where am I on that spectrum? And that's tangible, right? That's something that when you sit with, you can actually get a sense of where you are in relation to those.
Very
Yeah.
practical. Yeah, that's a verse I alluded to. It's from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, chapter 2, text 46. And in that chapter, I mean, it's a really, really good chapter. There's a lot of things like this. There's like a lot of really clear definitions in that chapter. If you look at verse 45, 46, and 47 from that chapter, so 11 to 45 to 47, there's a description of the highest level of devotee, the middle level, and the lowest level of devotee. And as I mentioned, the lower level devotee has faith in the Lord. They may have faith in the name or the deity, but they don't actually see the presence of the divine in other people. And that's where it's called a kanishta adhikari, kanishta level, entry level spirituality, I called it. And that's where we can see that there's a lot of people there, because it's kind of like a funnel, It takes a certain number of people who are like, satisfied being fanatical before somebody decides to grow up in their particular bhakti tradition. So this is a part of the reason why spirituality, religion is not, appreciated by some people, because you'll have a lot of people who just stay at this level. And then the higher level is 11 to 46. Ishvare tadatineshu bale sheshu dvisatucha prema maitri kripopeksha yak karoti samadhyamaha. One who can develop love for the Lord, friendship for the devotees, compassion for the innocent, and respectful distance from those who are not ready and are inimical. That person is a middle level devotee, and is actually quite practical, all those things, and is what we should be aiming for. We don't have to try to aim for that higher level of devotee who sees the Lord in everything all the time, because that happens through steady practice at the madhyam middle level. The middle level gives 4 different ways, measurable ways, for us to discriminate and treat different persons differently in appropriate ways. So it's really a map. It's a map for us, and that's a really practical verse, one of many. There are other verses like that in the Nectar of Instruction and other places, which we'll get to help us know how we're doing in our bhakti, and how we can tell how others are doing for the sake of how closely we should associate with them. Because on one level, everybody's a devotee, and certainly anybody who's trying to practice devotional service is a devotee. And it's also a fact that there are degrees of advancement in devotional service, and it's good to know how we're doing. And it's also good to know what the symptoms of advancement are, so that when we see them in somebody, we can really get close. Get close to a fire, get that light, get that heat, really, cook that sabji. So yeah, thank you. So with that, we'll get into today's verse, like same verse as last week. I'll share it again. Here it is. Dadati pratigrhanati guhyam akhyati pruchati punkte bhojate chaiva sharbatam priti lakshanam. Offering gifts and charity. accepting charitable gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, accepting prasada, and offering prasada are the 6 symptoms of love shared by one devotee and another. And somebody asked the question about what does it mean, charity? We looked at that word charity. To give freely was one of the parts of what charity means, and to give that which is actually useful. So these are all essential things, actually. They're not just useful, they're essential. When we make the case they're essential based on how Srila Prabhupada says, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been established to facilitate these 6 kinds of loving exchanges between devotees. So it's not really like an optional thing. It's such central thing, very much central, very essential thing. And we talked a lot about the nature of gifts and the gift of the holy name. We talked a little bit, a fair bit about revealing one's mind in confidence and inquiring confidentially. And we'll talk a little more about that. So, we are hearing about revealing the contents of one's heart, how that's a gift actually that you give. And it's important to view it this way because that helps us understand, as many people were reflecting, that we can use discrimination in who we open up to, who we share our hearts with, because it's actually a great gift to give ourselves. And depending on who you give yourself to, you can really open yourself up for advancement, right? And so one of the meanings of this is that as Prabhupada says in the purport, we're meant to hear from devotees. He says, his exact words are, one should inquire about the Krishna consciousness movement and open their mind in order to understand the situation of this material world, right? So a lot of what the devotees or Srila Prabhupada or the Shastra is talking about is a sober and frank appraisal of the status quo, material life, and the material world as it is. And that can be very, very powerful if one is ready and interested in receiving it. And generally what we find is if somebody's not so interested, not so ready to receive the gift of the devotees and the Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna opening their hearts about the way things are, they can consider the statements of scripture to be fanatical, or they may feel turned off by the directness of the books or the philosophy. We may experience that ourselves to some degree, that kind of like cringing inside when Prabhupada, drops the mic a little bit and says how it is about something and criticizes that which really he considers ought to be criticized in the light of spiritual truth. But it's actually a very intimate thing to accept that and to receive that. So when Prabhupada says one should inquire about the Krishna consciousness movement and open their mind, this speaks to our own agency to choose to ask, right? Just like Arjuna, he had that teachable moment. We talked about that in our Bhagavad Gita course, that he really couldn't see any way of solving the situation on his own. He had an absolutely irreconcilable, disastrous kind of catastrophic situation. And that helped him to really surrender to Krishna. I give up, please help me. We may or may not have that. Generally, we don't have that kind of level of drama at any given moment in our lives. Of course, we may, and a disproportionate number of people who come to bhakti do so in the middle of great drama and trauma. And that's not a coincidence, because that's when they're really ready for the answers. However, at least we can go out of our way to cultivate inquiring sincerely, which means being interested in the answer. So when the devotees talk about, when Prabhupada in the Shastra talks about how the happiness that we can receive in the material world is quantitatively finite, doesn't have an endless quantity, and it's qualitatively not really enough to touch the soul. That's a profound statement, one we can receive if we choose to inquire submissively, inquire with sincerity. It's like, okay, wow, so everything I've been chasing actually really won't satisfy me. But not just that, I can be satisfied with spiritual satisfaction, spiritual joy, spiritual relationships, connection with the divine. Okay, somebody who receives in that sincere way, because of sincere inquiry, readiness to receive, they actually can benefit tremendously. They can advance by leaps and bounds. Whereas the same person or any other person who hears the same message but doesn't have that same receptive mood, they're not actually interested in the potential for it being true, can easily dismiss, can easily be distracted or ignore the same message. So Prabhupada is mentioned here that we're trying to understand the situation of this material world, right? All of us, actually, we all received so many shortcuts in understanding the world because we trusted authority. We all trusted our parents, we trusted our educational systems, and actually, that's a good thing. That's how people advance. You know, in this modern culture we're in now, it's considered very passe, very not cool to trust authority, because that's for foolish people. You know, if you don't trust authority, take it back to its beginnings. Like, you know, baby's trying to walk and parents are like, okay, you do it like this. If the baby turns and is like, no, I don't believe you. How long is it going to take them for them to walk? I'll say never. But no, I'll figure it out. I got this. I'll figure it out on my own. I'll walk on my own. Thanks, mom. I got this. Like, no, good luck. You're never going to walk. Never going to happen. You know, there's so many things we're taking on authority. I use a cell phone. I can't tell you how the cell phone works. I trust that it works because people have put their time into making it work. And that's enough for me. I don't need to be a cell phone specialist. I get to use the benefit of all they have to say about cell phones. And it works like this. Just trust me. Okay, good. I'll use it. There's all this authority in our lives, you know? And so similarly, when we have the receptivity to hear from the devotees, we actually can like jumpstart. We can actually like make rapid advancement. And by the same token, if and when we have doubts, that same relationship of revealing our heart and expressing the doubt comes into play. Because if you don't express the doubt, if it's like, I won't admit to myself that I have a doubt, I won't admit that, then I can't admit it to anyone else. Then I can't enunciate it. Then I can't see it. Then I can't challenge it. Then I can't answer it. It's all unconscious, right? And the more it comes out into the conscious light, the more it becomes sattvic and aware and owned and without shame and without darkness and without illusion and without drama. It's like, you can like raise your hand and be like, actually, I don't know. I'm not sure I'm convinced about this. Help me become convinced, right? Then that kind of honest sharing of one's own heart can open the way to answer those doubts and continue to make progress in bhakti. So in relationship to the philosophy, this is also there in the loving exchanges that, you know, Prabhupada at one point, he said, somebody who doesn't have questions isn't thinking in relationship to his classes. Like, it's important to, not necessarily that you have to have questions per se, but it's important to be exercising one's own heart and mind in relationship to what we're hearing, like trying to apply it to our lives, thinking about what it looks like. If one has a doubt, you know, airing that appropriately to the appropriate person, not having it just be like surface level, and also not creating any false or unnecessary boundaries to spiritual growth by putting up like doubts and challenges as a defensive measure, because I don't really want to hear about how I can't be happy in the world just doing material things. I don't really want to do that. I don't want to admit that. So I'll just like put up this front that's full of questions, and it looks like I'm actually inquiring, but I'm really just trying to deflect and trying to distract from my own process of receiving. So this is a very subtle thing. This process of inquiring from the heart and receiving from another person's heart and presenting our heart and having that be received in relationship to the philosophy, and particularly in how to apply that philosophy to our lives, right? So that's actually there even in the most kind of like logical and left brain moments that we have when we're hearing these, you know, sober descriptions of philosophy. It's like nothing is actually abstract. Nothing in our entire world of bhakti is abstract. It's all practical. It's all in applied science, right? Like just like in school, you have math, theoretical math and applied math, right? Applied math is like engineering and biochemistry. Like they're all using math, but they're doing it to manipulate things and make things happen. Abstract theoretical math is like, you know, stuff that kind of makes sense in a way that you can't actually apply in the real world, but it's just like a brain exercise. Nothing about bhakti is actually like that. It's actually all personal. Even the stuff that is completely way out there and we can't even imagine how it applies. Just hearing it is a personal experience. Receiving it is actually a personal experience. So it's always an applied science. And just bringing that out, that we're never actually meant to treat this as an abstract thing and separate from our own selves and separate from the acharyas who are presenting it, or separate from Krishna, you know. Just like in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we have a description of the material world as Krishna's universal form. Even though it's an external form, it's not his spiritual body. You know, we're hearing about these suns and planets and stars and how it's like manifesting time, and it's showing the creation and destruction of all living forms. Like, that's not our essential reality. We're not matter. But because it's the Bhagavad Gita, even the material universe is presented as Krishna's something. In this case, his external, his universal external form, right? And he owns that. It's like it's my external form. There's nothing that's separate from him. So that includes the philosophy. That includes our hearing process. That it's always this thing of our heart is being worked on by the philosophy. Our heart is being worked on by the acharya. And to the extent that we can own that and sit in that and receive that self-work that's happening as we're hearing, to that extent, we're not actually performing an intellectual exercise. We're not actually trying to figure it out without applying it to our own heart and our own lives. We're not actually avoiding vulnerability. We're not actually avoiding Krishna. And that also applies ultimately to the holy name. You know, Krishna is revealing his own heart in the holy name. I mean, Rupa Goswami, he wrote an Ashtakam. This book is by Rupa Goswami. He wrote another Shastra, a song, 8 verses called the Nam Ashtaka, the Ashtaka of the names. And it's beautiful because Rupa Goswami is 2 things. He's an amazing devotee and he's an amazing poet. And so he writes about the pure devotional realizations of what the name is and how he feels about that. And he also does it in 8 different ways. There's 8 different poetic meters in the 8 verses. And one time I asked my guru how to chant better, and he said, learn this, study it, and read it every day. And I do. I read at least 1 verse every day, and the next day I read the next verse. Actually, I memorized it so I could do it off the top of my head and really think about what the verses mean, because every word in them is like Rupa Goswami meditating on the holy name. And in all of our acharyas' writings, Rupa Goswami, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, every single one of our acharyas has talked about the holy name, because they all have an intimate relationship with it, because it's a very central part of what we do. That's why we're called Hare Krishnas. And in the holy name, Krishna is revealing his heart. He's revealing his desires for us. He's revealing his own intimate, vulnerable self. And to the extent that we can realize that is the extent that we're actually truly present with him, right? So are we chanting the name with the conviction that that's what Krishna is coming to give, or are we chanting it with some reflection, some shadow of that, some semblance of that? Perhaps like we kind of believe that, or perhaps we're like kind of trying to get it done, just chant our rounds, or you know, there's any number of reasons why we could be chanting, but ultimately that chanting process and all of our bhakti processes are a mutual revelation of our heart and Krishna's heart. You know, if we bring our own heart to our chanting, it's like Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And if in that mantra, in that chanting process, you're, you know, vulnerably presenting your heart to Krishna, that I have all these material desires and I have this ignorance of you, and yeah, even I'm trying to chant these rounds and I'm distracted, but at least I'm taking that distraction to you. I'm owning it. Actually, here it is, Krishna. I'm trying to be present, but here's the distraction. And it's like, I'm not going to pretend I'm not distracted. I'm not going to like just try to like stifle it and pretend I can be better than what I actually am right now. This is what I got. I have this level of attention for you, but I really want to have more. That's vulnerable. That's honest. That's open-hearted. That's sharing your heart with Krishna. And then when we do that and we receive his name in a mood of honest reception, of like, please reveal yourself to me. Please, I want you. I want to know you. I want to hear you. Then he makes himself known. And then it becomes a back and forth. It is not a ritualistic process. It is not a one-sided thing. It's very much a back and forth. It's very much a relationship. This chanting process is Prabhupada said 99% of your advancement in bhakti will happen through your japa process. It is where we realize what we have to work on. It is where we see our anger, our fear, our grief. It is where we see our hang-ups around relationships. It is where we see our doubts. An honest chanting session can reveal any or all these things because Krishna can show them to us to demonstrate what is our next thing to work on or our next thing to offer to him and release. And also it's the place where we receive the answers and the solution, the strength, the support, the companionship from him that we need to actually persevere and get beyond any of these challenges and any other challenges. So just really some thoughts, some closing thoughts, I guess, on Guhyam Akhyati Prichati, revealing the heart vulnerably in confidence and receiving it in confidence. I guess the last thing I'd say is this word confidence, confidence means you have confidence in the person you're revealing to, right? And they have confidence in you, to keep confidence, to be trustworthy, like somebody who can hear you in confidence. They won't repeat your secrets. That's a good friend, right? Like, this is universal. We trust people who can hear and see us at our darkest periods, and they're not going to judge us. They're not going to broadcast those things. If they hear and see us at our best, they're not going to be jealous of those things. They're not going to wish they had it themselves. They'll feel legitimately happy for us. This is confidence. This is trustworthy association. So now we'll take any reflections, comments, or questions, anything that you want to reflect or have questions about this, what I just said about hearing the Shastra or relating to the name in a mood of revealing and hearing, or anything else around that, while I grab some water.
I'm wondering if you could share one of the verses that you were speaking about.
Oh, Rupa Goswami's Namashtaka?
Yeah.
Sure.
Like what you...
We could do that.
And how do you spell that?
Namashtaka?
N-A-M. Nam. N-A-M-A-S.
Yeah, N-A-M-A-S-T-A-K-A. Namashtaka. Or, yeah. Just like we have the Gurvashtaka, 8 verses glorifying the Guru.
And the Shishashtaka, right? The 8 verses Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah, Ashtaka is a very popular mode. 8's a nice round number. And so, yeah, I can share it.
Share one with us.
I can even find a link to the verse. It says, maybe I'll do that afterwards, so I don't have to look for it now, but remind me so I don't forget.
No.
So the first verse of the Namashtaka Rupa Goswami. Nikhila Shuti Mauli Ratnamala Duty Nirajita Pada Pankajanta I Mukta Kulera Pasyamanam Paritastvam Harinama Samshayami. Nikhila Shuti Mauli Ratnamala Duty Nirajita Pada Pankajanta. He's saying very poetically, he's saying all the scriptures of the universe, all of them are getting together, just like we get together for Mangalarti. We glorify the Lord, we offer a ghee lamp. All the scriptures are using their light. They're casting their light. It says the crown jewels. The crown jewel means like you have a crown. It's like the biggest jewel is the one on top, the center, the one on your forehead, the crown jewel, right? The crown jewel of all the scriptures are casting light just to illuminate the tips of the toes of your lotus feet, O holy name. In other words, the scripture is just trying to shed light on your glories. The end of the toes of your feet are being illuminated by the scriptures. Ai is like an exclamation, like, oh my goodness. Ai. Everyone say ai. Ai. Even sounds like it. Oh my goodness. Ai mukta kulera pasyamanam. Oh my, you are glorified and worshipped by all the liberated persons. Paritas tvam harinama samshayami. Haritas means completely. Tvam harinama, oh to you, oh holy name, samshayami, I take complete shelter. He's saying complete in 2 different ways. I completely take complete shelter of you, oh holy name. Because you're glorified by all the liberated persons, and all the scriptures in the universe are just illuminating the tips of the toes of your own lotus feet. This is the first verse. So there's some things there about the nature of scripture, about Rupa Goswami's ecstasy in taking shelter, about the nature of completely taking shelter, how it becomes deeper, is I completely take complete shelter. So there's a lot you can say about those verses. Every one of them has a different take, has a different meter. And if you remind me, I'll look up a good reference for them with the translations, and you can study them if you want. Who can stop you?
Thank you. I'll make a note of it. Haribol.
Haribol. We can see in those kinds of verses how Rupa Goswami is relating to the holy name very personally. Very, very personally. Any other reflections or comments on anything so far? Or questions?
Caitlin has a reflection.
Yeah.
Hi. Haribol.
Hari.
I really enjoyed I'm not a cell phone specialist, but I trust that it works.
Yeah.
I think that that's something I've seen come up today, of course, because Krishna always knows. And also, like, in relating to that, we have our own agency to ask and to be able to use japa in such a way to ask Krishna for giving us those opportunities to express and see our doubts and our fears and have that level of vulnerability that provides that sort of like sense of offering and releasing to Krishna. I think that that's something that I've seen come organically in my japa practice and have struggled with naming that that's a part of what japa is. And so that's just been really beautiful to see that relationship between that sort of agency to be in that place in practice, to have that moment of heart to heart with Krishna through the holy name. So I'm really excited to hear more about Rupa Goswami's Namashastra. So
I'd be happy to share it. Yeah. Yeah, ultimately, everything we're doing, I think one of the takeaways of this verse and this whole idea of the culture of loving exchanges is it helps us get away from the idea that spiritual life is ritualistic life, and it's about following rules and being good at following rules and doing it right and being right and good and accepted because of those things. And this is like so classic, it's not just like you or I or this is generation after generation struggles with this. It's like dualistic thinking, good, bad. Oh, I followed the rule, I'm good. That person didn't, they're bad, right? That's not what spiritual life is about. The purpose of the rules is to help us to be able to remember Krishna better and not forget him. And if we're remembering him and not forgetting him, then we're also free. If we're really, really remembering him, not forgetting, we're not actually thinking about whether I'm good enough. There's no question of being good enough. We're always part and parcel of Krishna. We're always accepted by him. It's like, ultimately, if we're living these loving exchanges, then whatever we're doing as an offering. Whatever we're doing as an offering. One of the prayers that I learned after worshiping the deity, there's a bunch of prayers you can offer to the deity that it's like, okay, even if I made all these mistakes, even if there were so many things I did wrong and the timing was off and I wasn't clean and I didn't do it right and all these things, I'm still begging that you accept me as a servant and let all my actions be offerings of love to you. It's one of the mantras. Let me every action be an offering of love. So this is meditation that the devotees have, that when they're chanting their japa or reading a book or giving a class or leading a kirtan or doing anything, cooking a meal, they're actually thinking about their guru. They're actually thinking about, or gurus. They're thinking about Krishna. They're thinking about the devotees who have helped them and how this is an offering, right? Like the best devotees I know, they talk about their japa relationship as like a service that they're giving their guru. Like their guru gifted them the holy name, and every time they sit down and chant their japa, they're offering this gift back to their guru, like, just to show you how seriously I've taken what you've given me. Here's me chanting the gift you've given me, and I'm doing it in your name. And if I make any advancement, I want everyone to know, I want the universe to know it's because of you. It's like this personal exchange that they have with their guru every time they chant Hare Krishna, every time they say Hari Bol. It's like deep down in their heart, they're doing it like, thank you, Guru Maharaj. Like, it's another expression of how much I'm grateful for you. Like, there's never a moment that goes by. There's no meal they make. There's no kirtan they lead. There's no class they give where they're not overflowing with gratitude for their gurus, right? That's personalism. That's bhakti culture. That's the loving exchanges. That's devotees at a very high level. And so to get there means practicing these loving exchanges, going out of our way for them. If we find ourselves avoiding the devotees, taking it as medicine. It's like, no, I can't avoid people. I'm not going to go back to Godhead avoiding people. I'm going to choose to be around spiritual people. I'm going to choose to lay my heart bare a little bit at a time, be a little vulnerable, take it as medicine. Because at the highest levels, that's all they want to be doing as the devotees, is just want to find other devotees and talk about Krishna and reveal their hearts. That's what gives the greatest joy. But until we realize that, we can at least practice it bit by bit in our day-to-day. So thanks for that. If there's any other reflections, we'll take them. Otherwise, we'll go to the last pair, the prashadam, the giving and receiving of spiritual food. So the last part of the verse is bhokte bhojayate. Let's find the Sanskrit here. Bhokte bhojayate. To eat and to feed, to take in and to offer food. So one of the names for our Hare Krishna movement is the kitchen religion, because we're so appreciated for our culinary tradition and for our dedication to distributing spiritual food. And we always have been. If you look in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's very much part of our culture all the way back to Lord Chaitanya. It's actually very important because you are what you eat. Really, you are. And the proof of that isn't just, biological. I could show that. I have a master's in public health. I can show you how what you eat affects your health and affects your mood even, that's a fact. But you are what you eat at a deeper level than even that. Think about the people in your life who cooked for you with love. Think about your parents. Think about your grandparents, the ones who, whether or not they were the greatest chefs in the world, they cooked for you with love that they never had for anyone else, because they loved you uniquely and spectacularly. And every time you ate their meals, you ate something that was tangible and special. This is why we have, here in Canada, I'm in Toronto right now, there's a chain called Mama's Pizza. And you got like your Papa John's sandwiches. You got these kinds of, because people want the idea that they can go somewhere and eat something that someone has made for them with the love that their grandfather or mom or grandma makes for them. And it's like, whether that's actually possible in a restaurant is debatable. Probably not, spoiler alert. But the idea is that it's possible with
Unless
food.
it's Govinda's.
Unless it's Govinda's, yeah, Prashadam restaurant. It's possible with food, because food is actually a mechanism by which we exchange consciousness. This is actually part of the spiritual science. So here it is. When you eat, you're intimately associating with the consciousness of your cooks. And when you cook, you're offering your consciousness to the people who are taking your food. It's actually a loving exchange. This is why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 26, if one offers me with love and devotion, a fruit, a flower, a leaf, or water, I will accept it. He's the source of everything. He doesn't need anything. What to speak of a fruit, flower, leaf, or water? He is all fruits, flowers, leaves, and all water. He's everything. What does he need that for? If one offers me with love and devotion, I will accept it. Why? Because the love and devotion is there, and Krishna is all about that love and devotion. So he will reciprocate with that attempt at bhakti, no matter how clumsy. That sincere devotion and love. And so even on the apparently mundane level, our parents cooking for us, are cooking for each other. You can't get a home-cooked meal at a restaurant unless you know the cooks, unless you run the restaurant. You can't. It's not possible. No price in the world can get you on the menu. You can't go to a restaurant and say, can you go back to the kitchen and tell the cook, I want them to cook anything. I don't care what it is. On the menu, I want them to cook it for me like my mom made it for me when I was a kid, with love. They can't do it. Not possible. No price tag. Unless your mom's back there, it ain't going to happen, because it's too personal. It's too personal. Actually, this science of offering food isn't just about how we offer to Krishna. It's even manifest in our day-to-day lives. This is why if you eat at restaurants where people are eating or they're cooking food in the back, they don't want to be there. If they don't want to be there, they want to go home. They resent you as a customer. They're like coming back from their break. They're fed up and they're just putting all that energy in the food. You're not going to have the most wonderful experience. It doesn't matter how great they are as cooks. You're going to get a two-sided experience. Culinarily, one thing, and consciousness-wise, a whole other thing. The level of attachment to material enjoyment, the level of illusion, the level of freedom that the soul has, wherever they are, when they cook, the food that comes from their kitchen, that comes from their offering, actually touches our heart similarly. So based on this science, we're always trying to feed Krishna, and we're also really interested in spreading spiritual food around because it's such a sneaky, easy way to share good vibes, as they say, to share like positive spiritual messages without opening your mouth and saying anything, right? Francis of Assisi said you should preach always, and sometimes you should even say something, right? So in other words, it's not just about what you say. The devotees exemplify this because one of our main tactics of outreach or preaching or whatever you want to call it is the distribution of spiritual food that's been offered to Krishna with love and devotion. And we hope accepted because on the basis of that love and devotion, it doesn't just disappear, it stays with us. It becomes prasada. The word prasad literally means mercy. It's Krishna's mercy. And we eat it, we honor it as devotees, and we also distribute it. This is why devotees own restaurants everywhere in the world. I remember hiking up Machu Picchu in 2010. I was chanting like 3 rounds a day. I was like a neophyte devotee. And I didn't have any idea, but when I went to Peru, everywhere I went, I met devotees. There was a Govinda's restaurant in every city I went to. And somehow or other, coincidentally, I met devotees and the Govinda's restaurant everywhere. And that means I got to eat prasadam everywhere. Because Govinda's restaurant means you're eating something that some devotee has made for Krishna with love and is distributing to you under the guise of a restaurant. It's not actually a restaurant. It's actually a spiritual outreach center. And all the food there is actually offered. So I felt that. I felt that tangible result of eating that kind of food. It wasn't just that it was vegetarian. I was already a vegan. I knew what vegan food was like. And it wasn't exotic food. It was just like avocado sandwiches. It really wasn't something I couldn't get anywhere else. But it was something ineffable about it. In fact, I remember the first time I had prasad, there was something indescribable about it. And I've had that experience many, 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 many times. And I've also had the experience of having a well-cooked meal prepared by somebody who doesn't have any devotion at different times in my life, and the two really don't compare. And I think we can all, relate to that we've had experiences with prasad. When we offer food, our experience with the food changes. When we eat food that's been offered, there's a special quality to it. If you've ever been to a temple where there's really serious devotees who make it their whole life's business to just offer as much to Krishna with as much devotion as they have, according to such beautiful songs and mantras and very clean and perfectly timed to this established deity form, there's even a special quality there to the prasad, And then the food that's directly on Krishna's plate is called Mahaprasad. Let's say you make a whole bowl, you make a whole pot of rice. That whole pot of rice is considered offered as prasad, but the little bowl that Krishna ate his rice, those little rice grains are called Mahaprasad. And that's very rarefied, very special prasad. So there's different ways in which devotees show love to one another by, sometimes when you're around a devotee, they'll be like, oh yeah, I came back from this special temple, or I got this, I've been saving this prasad, I would like you to have some, and they'll distribute it to you. And this is a loving exchange. Or they'll ask you to come over and they'll cook a meal and offer it to Krishna, and they'll feed you. This is a loving exchange. And so this is something that we always do. And it's a really practical thing because everyone always eats and everyone always wants to eat. It's like agribusiness, restaurant, food businesses are always the biggest financial sectors of any developed country, because people eat like 3 times a day. And if we could, we eat like 6 times a day if it didn't create a problem. It's just so fun. It's so natural. And so we're going to do it anyway. Even if we have no interest in spiritual life, we're doing it. So both at the level of outreach for the innocent who just want to eat, want a nice vegetarian meal, and at the level of like the advanced devotee who knows exactly what's on their plate when they receive the gift of prasadam. Prasad, spiritual offered food, is such a crucial part of who we are. And if you can just do this one thing in this life, is to only eat the food that you offer to Krishna or others have offered to Krishna, to eat only offerable foods and to distribute that. If you just do that, that is just low key, such an incredibly potent spiritual choice that you will have a tangible, palpable experience of what that does for your consciousness. And if we think about what it was like to eat that food that our parents and grandparents made for us with love, think about what happens when we're receiving the remnants of Krishna's love for us, when someone cooks for him with devotion for him, and then we take those remnants. It's actually such a beautiful thing. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he writes several songs about the glories of prasadam. In one of them, he says, "Oh, my brothers, come sit." And what all the great yogis have taken thousands of years to accomplish, we will accomplish in one sitting, spiritually, by honoring the Lord's prasad. They have such faith in prasad. Another example is Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada was the senior devotee on the planet. He is the senior devotee in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness when he was with us, present in his body. He had an unlimited number of things he could have been doing. He was translating for hours at night. He was getting almost no sleep. He was keeping correspondence with thousands of people. He had thousands of disciples. And yet, if you talk to any of his servants, he had like 4 or 5 servants who served him over his time with us for more than a couple of years or more than a year, and several others who served here and there. They will all say, when it was time for a meal, Srila Prabhupada would not meet with other people. He would not multitask. Generally, he would eat on his own. He wouldn't note. He wouldn't take notes. He wouldn't recite anything that people would like copy and paste into a letter. No, it'd be him and his prasadam. He would be like deeply meditating on the prasadam, looking at it, eating it in silence. Maybe it's some light kirtan in the background. That's it. No management, no dealing with the issues in the world, just him and Krishna. He had such faith in that experience, such faith that Krishna would nourish him and give him what he needed to do all those other things in the other 22 hours he had in the day. But every day, his meals, very, very focused, very sober, very present. And that, when I found that out, was very eye-opening for me, because he could have written more books with that time. He could have been like eating while writing notes. He could have been doing so many multitasking, so many things, but no, he knew that the best thing he could be doing in that moment was being totally present with Krishna's mercy, and he did. And if you look at the joy in his face when he was distributing prasadam to guests, to devotees, how much confidence he had that this is going straight to their heart. That the 4th verse of the Gurvashtaka, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur talks about how one of the symptoms of the guru is they're offering things to Krishna and they're offering the remnants of those things to other people with joy. That's somebody who has faith in Krishna lives that way. So this is also love. If you want to know how to share love and you don't know how to open your heart, you don't know how to give a gift, cook a meal. Go home and work up as much devotion as you can for Krishna and bake him some cookies, and then find someone you care about and distribute the cookies to them, the prasadam. And that is a very intimate, loving exchange. And if they receive it, which they should, if they've been listening to this class, or if they, aren't crazy, because who doesn't like a good cookie? Find out what they like and offer that to Krishna, and then give it to them. And then it's an exchange. It's a loving exchange. And that science is that, like, it's not just me and Krishna anymore. It's like this person who gave me the prasad, who offered it, the person who shopped for it, the person who cut up the vegetables, they're all present in this whatever cookie I'm having. And I'm receiving that with joy. So those are some thoughts about prasad. If you have any reflections about Krishna's prasad, if you've had any special experiences with it, you want to talk about it, share about it, or any questions, comments, reflections on this, now is the time.
I wanted to just point out that maybe some of the people in the group, some of us have heard this before, or you will hear it the longer you're in the Bhakti movement. But people will say, like, if someone offers you Mahaprasad, or really any prasad, but especially Mahaprasad, you like never decline it. Like you always take something, even if you're not hungry, even if you're like, I'm not really eating sweets. It's like, if you have the opportunity to take something that was offered off of Krishna's plate or any of the deities on the altar, you always say yes. So like when we've come back and brought Mahaprasad and there's been people at Kirtan like, no, I don't want anything. We're like, no, you can't leave the room without just a teeny little bit. So this also comes from, we don't want to decline, just like we were talking about giving and receiving. We don't want to decline the opportunity for someone else to be giving us that prashad, especially within you knowing that, right, between devotees. And so I just wanted to name it.
And on that note, in Jagannath Puri is noted for its special quality of prasadam. Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra are offered something like 34 preparations of prasadam every day there. The standard of offering food to Jagannath is through the roof. And in Jagannath Puri, the culture is you never say no to Jagannath Prasad, ever. If you're full, you say Triptosmi, which means I'm satisfied. There's not actually no. It's I'm satisfied. So just so you don't think that we're fanatics or there's some kind of like weird thing you can never say no to food. One way to honor prasadam is called honoring prasad. If you're full, you don't have to put it in your body. You can fold your hands. You can offer prayers to the Lord in the form of his prasadam. You can offer obeisances to it. You can circumambulate it. You can touch it to your forehead. You can bow to it. These are all ways of honoring it without actually gorging yourself and getting sick. So if you're actually full, you can honor the Lord's prasad in these other ways. And just like in Puri, you can say, Triptosmi, I'm satisfied. And so this culture of like, oh, wow, the Lord has come present before me in the form of prasadam. It's like, I receive that however I can, even if it's just like, I just had a feast. I can't possibly, but thank you, Krishna. That's also honoring the Lord's prasad. Yes, thank you. Any other reflections or comments, questions? Kitchen, religion, spiritual food. From Samantha, prasadam is very special. I have been blessed with prasad in, one second, in Jagannath and Jersey, both amazing. Jagannath Puri, yeah, that's true. Another thing about prasad is that every temple, every community, every cook has a special quality. There are local specialties. There are things you can't get anywhere else. Just like there's things that your mom made that no one else makes the same way. So I know cooks in this movement who have very, very special, like I can with my eyes closed, you can blindfold me, and if you feed me rice and dal made by them, I can tell you who it was, because I know their style and I know the emotion and feelings I have in association with that meal, like the quality of consciousness. One very exalted devotee who lived for several years in the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan. His name was Bhubaneswar Prabhu, Prabhupada disciple. He was a gruff, elderly gentleman who had a rough and gruff exterior, but a heart of gold. Really sweet gentleman. He passed away a couple of years ago. And he used to cook for Radhashama Sundar, the deities there, Krishna Balaram and Gauranitai, in the temple for years. And he had very special recipes and very special love for Krishna. And when I'd go visit him, he would always have some special prasad he'd set aside. He would give to me and anyone else who visited him. And I remember very fondly those exchanges and also his manifest bhakti and those little sweets and things I was having. I could taste like the very special affection he had for the Lord. So that's that's available. There's local specialties.
Like Srinivasa's sabji.
Like Srinivasa's sabji. You got that right.
So, Shami, I have a question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that Prabhupada was the most senior during his lifetime.
Right.
Who is now?
There's no one person who occupies the same position as Srila Prabhupada now. And that's exactly what Prabhupada wanted. Because Prabhupada came to the West at a time where there was nobody doing anything practically. And he was the senior devotee and he had all this responsibility. And he always will occupy a very special place. He's irreplaceable. And we have the benefit of having, for example, an entire generation of devotees who learned from him, took initiation from him, his disciples. And we have now generations of devotees who learn from them and learn from them. And so we have spiritual families, right? And so, for example, can you imagine a family without grandparents? How sad, right? I had some of the best grandparents in the world. I'm so fortunate for that. And so Srila Prabhupada, instead of being the senior devotee in the movement now, he, for me, is my grandfather guru. And I have my, father and uncles and aunts and cousins. It's a spiritual family. And some are very senior in one respect, and they're expert in this thing, and some are expert in another thing. And there's actually we get to live this philosophy of it takes a village to raise a child. Like, it's not just all on Srila Prabhupada. We're all reading Prabhupada's books. There's never a time when that stops being relevant. We're all following his standards. And we have living, breathing, acting people, creating communities based on their particular understanding of Prabhupada, that you can walk into that community today. You can see in Govardhan Eco Village what Radhanath Swami's love for Srila Prabhupada is by walking into that place and feeling the community, because they're all based on Radhanath Swami's love for Prabhupada. You can go to New Vrajadham in Hungary and feel Shivaram Swami's love for Srila Prabhupada and his particular mood. And it's beautiful there, and it's gorgeous. And you will never feel like, oh, I just want Prabhupada. It's not monolithic anymore. It's like Prabhupada is manifest through his disciples too. And you can go, the list goes on. So I wouldn't say that there's any one person who ever replaces Prabhupada. I would say that the proof of his greatness is that he empowered other people to be great too, in their own unique ways. And for someone in my position or our position, our privilege is to develop a personal relationship with these devotees and be inspired by them. And if one is so inclined, and I think it's a great idea too, develop discipleship, develop a mood of service, and take initiation from one of these qualified devotees. As the Nectar of Instruction goes on, we'll hear about the qualities and qualifications of advanced devotees, what to look for in the highest level of devotee. For those who want a guru, for those who want to know who should I associate with and open my heart to, and how should I do it, verses 6, 7 of the Nectar of Instruction. We'll talk about that. Does that help?
Absolutely. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. From Martine, today one of my closest colleagues was mandated to go to a meeting with our supervisor, and she was really struggling. It's a tough situation, and she feels very defeated and like leadership is pushing her out. I was going to be in Burlington and dropped her a piece of selenite and a heart rock. She knows I love them. And I asked Srinivas if he would recommend something else. He said, bring her prashadam. It is magic. I exhaled. Of course it was. I took a flower from my altar and brought her that also. Yeah, the offered flower is also prasad. Offered incense, all these things.
And so is the selenite. If you offer that, then that's prasad too.
It is too. Yeah, I remember coming back to visit when I was a monk, I would come back a couple times a year to visit family. I would distribute prasad like as liberally as I could, special prasad from Vrindavan. And we had like a pet rabbit, and for the rabbit, I would find the nicest carrot I could and offer it to Krishna. And I would get water from the temple in downtown, Maha water that Krishna had drunk. And I would bring it and give it to the rabbit because that's a jiva in there, What can they do? They can't go out and offer with love and devotion. They don't have an opposable thumb. They can't make it happen. They're just thinking about whatever bunnies think about. It's like, yeah, but that's a jiva. That could have been me in my last life. So instead of just dismissing them, I treated them as a jiva by offering them prasadam. And when they ate that, which is what they did, because I gave them what they happened to like, carrots and water, I felt it in my heart. I felt like, yeah, Krishna's like, yeah, thank you for connecting us. And that's a way that jiva can connect. And so there's this kind of all-pervading quality, this sneaky ninja quality that prasadam has. It gets everywhere. No one knows. We're actually taking over the world with it. It's actually this beautiful, loving thing. And it just looks like a sweet Hare Krishna devotee distributing cookies or whatever. And it's just like, oh, it's so much more than that. We have our fingers in all the pies. So just some thoughts. Melanie says, I do that with my dog. Yeah, that's love. That's love. Jai, any other reflections, comments? I'll say, so for this week, you can read, if you haven't read it already, read the 4th verse and then read the 5th verse. We'll start that next week. And for the reflection and chat, anything that stood out from the class or discussion. And also, so we reflected last week on ways we've received in terms of the loving exchanges. Now reflect on any way in which you can give back to the devotees in terms of giving and offering gifts, giving and offering prasadam, and on opening our hearts and receiving the hearts of others. How we feel like we can actually give to them. And any other comments, questions, reflections? We'll take them now.
We were appreciating your humor tonight, that you were funny, very funny tonight.
Hare Krishna.
That was from Tracy.
That's good.
What else? Please, let's have another reflect. There's Melanie.
Here I am. I really, really appreciated what you said about what was like quite an evening over here being a parent and trying to like listen and then also, you know, support my kid through whatever she's going through. And you were talking about like really offering your distraction, your vulnerability, like be vulnerable, be honest, like offer that, share that with Krishna. And even in like this opportunity to receive through listening and learning and like offering, like I showed up the best way that I could tonight. Wasn't like me sitting in the bhakti house just fully absorbed, but it was truly like all that I could really give tonight. And I just really appreciate that because that's like such the nature of life. And it's really important that we do that. And I remember I wrote this verse down and I put it on this card and I have it next to my bed and I read it at night sometimes. And I should do it more often because I forget sometimes. And it says, it's from 11:2:36 and for Srimad Bhagavatam. And it says, whatever I have done with my body according to my nature, said with my words, thought with my mind, perceived with my senses, and comprehended with my intelligence, I offer it unto the Supreme Lord, Narayan. And so just thank you tonight, because I really appreciated it. I needed all of that for what was happening behind my Ganga picture.
Thank you. Yeah, it's all an offering. It's all an active offering. In that same chapter, one of the symptoms of the exalted highest level of devotee is that they don't want anything. And it said if they receive even the entire universe, if they get the entire universe, they will immediately offer it to Krishna in devotion. So, yeah. Notably, they don't reject it. And they don't keep it for themselves. They give it all back to Krishna. So we can do that with whatever our situation is. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the situation is. We try to create a nice situation for Krishna, and we can only control about this much. So whatever we have, we offer it to Krishna. And that offering is the point. It's an active process of offering present participle. I'm offering my fill in the blank, my experience. You just keep doing that, and next thing you know, you have nothing else that you're not offering. It's all just your whole life is an offering. And that's where we want to be. That's success. Jai. Any other reflections or comments, questions? Okay. Jai. Thank you very much. Srila Rupa Goswami ki Jai. Shri Bharati Bhakti Sangha ki Jai. Nectar of Instruction ki Jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And I'll look up the Namashtaka of Rupa Goswami and I'll send a link in the WhatsApp so you can all geek out on that. Haribol.
Thank you for your service, Prabhu. Thank you for your offering of your intelligence in Krishna's name and sharing it with all of us.
See you next week.
Haribol, sweet soul.
Gauranga.
Gauranga.